I have been on a quest for a strand of pearls unlike any I'd seen before. As a researcher, I know that people don't wave their pearls in the wind. They hold them close to their hearts. Hello, I'm Catherine Whalen Costin, a curious explorer, a researcher and writer, producer and host of Let's Get Real Chattin' with Catherine, Clarity Whisperer podcast, and the author of Father Walter Krusky's Life Journey. Today I present to you a deep conversation where my guest so generously shares with us to expand our horizons, to get to know other people's journeys. If you listen well, you can hear a heart speak. As part of the documentary series, Beyond the Front Door, I went in search for the wisdom beyond the celebrity hype, beyond the shiny veneers, to the places real people live, the hurdles they jump, the barriers they meet, in my quest to unearth those pearls. Do we need each other? Do we learn from each other? What is the purpose of life on planet Earth? And what does it mean to be human? To be a woman? What challenges do we face? And can we build better relationships and systems to create an exquisite world for all? Watch for the full documentary, read the bios on the website CatherineWhalenCostin.com, and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well for regular updates and interviews from all my generous contributors. Before I could compile my research for the documentary and my string of really unique pearls, I had to explore with the people who hold those pearls. Let us begin right now.
You know, the book, The Red Tent, the whole concept, women, we've been passing this information for eons, and that's what we do. That's important. That's what we do. That's why I think, again, the books or women saying yes to doing this is because we need to pass the information. That is primal as well.
We know there's no overnight successes. So how did they get there? And what were their journeys like? And today I'm going to bring you one such woman who I really admire. She started off in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, followed a path that she knew as a little girl she could do anything. But as an adult, it became a little bit different. So she got into bodybuilding. She went to the University of Saskatchewan, and she moved to Calgary. She had a highly successful career in real estate sales, marketing, management, got into all kinds of aspects of business, venture capital, and how to build a corporation. And she is a really amazing woman. Today, we're going to be exploring with Laura Simonson. She is the founder and creator of a plant-based food for dogs. And so it's really great to have modern day women who are aspiring to do something differently, something that is going to make a difference in our world. And I think today's guest is just the perfect example. Laura Simonson.
Virchew is not a dog food company. It's about food for dogs. There's a big distinction. And so underneath all of this, it's all about empowerment. It's all about social change. It's about women for sure, because that's my happy spot is to be sharing my story so that other women feel they can do the same.
It wasn't an overnight success, of course. It was a journey. So welcome, Laura.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited about this. I've known you for so many years, and we've never had this opportunity.
Because you had some fun life experiences that just I'm so curious about. But I want to start with, you grew up in Saskatoon. What does the little girl Laura dream, if she dreams at all, about life as Laura the woman?
I was a dreamer. Dreaming was easy for me. So I was constantly feeling there was always another way, and I can't quite explain how that came, but it was always a feeling like there's always another way, or what's the right thing to do. That sort of sits with what I feel as a little girl when I was a little girl, and my Baba, Ukrainian Russian Baba, lived with us. And so we had, 5 kids. Baba's living in the home. My dad has built our home. He's a real phenomenal, carpenter, obviously, and build homes. And my mom is a phenomenal Ukrainian mom. She was so much a mom. So I was constantly given, because I was the youngest, I always felt like I lucked out being the youngest. And so I definitely was given a lot of good tools from, especially my mom. She was extremely positive, and so she was always uplifting me. There was always, do whatever you love, do what you want. Even though she came from really rough times, and so did my Russian Baba, she made it to she actually lived through the Russian Revolution, but lost 2 children, got to Canada.
Baba is grandmother?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure if it was grandmother or grandfather. So grandmother. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, grandmother.
So she
Russian Revolution is for, yeah, exactly. And made it to Canada. And her husband came about 2 years before her, and then had my mom and my uncle. So she basically had 2 lives and 2 families. So she definitely was, she had a tough life, and mom wasn't taught a lot of positive things, but somehow mom had that light in her. And mom's was very, very popular in Saskatoon and throughout her life there. And so I learned a lot from her. So I had a lot of great love, coming from having, of course, having our Baba in our house. It was actually, it added more to the family. So
you were encouraged to be a woman, that was could like, I find that really fascinating, that from Russian immigrants, that they felt for a woman that you could have dreams and be anything you wanted.
Maybe more like a young girl, do what you want. It was more encouraged, as a young girl. So not so much in my older years, I could see what my mom was playing out, which was the typical, what you were taught to be as a woman, right? Yeah. And hiding in some level her beauty, However, as a child, I definitely had a lot of great encouragement, and I had phenomenal teachers in my school, in King George School in Saskatoon. And my grade 1 and 2 teacher was Ainsley Thompson, and my goodness, I'm still trying to get a hold of her. She was an angel. She assisted me in ways that, how you just can't describe at the time when you're little, and until you get old and you realize, wow, that person made such an impact in my life. And so, so I had a lot of great support that was needed, because there was some troubled stuff in my childhood. So it was really, really important to have those kind of role models and those kind of mentors, and certainly a very, very positive mom.
And that's what I think is important for people who are watching this, to really get that. If you are a teacher or you are in your community, that's what that saying, "it takes a village," means.
So
we can uplift the neighbor's child, and that neighbor's child can go on to do magnificent things because of a few words of encouragement, telling them they're wonderful and you're glad they're in your neighborhood.
So it's a great story, and it'll be definitely part of my story and book someday, because I do want to write that.
I think that's interesting too, that the writing of the books seems to be a process a lot of women are embarking on, myself included, to share our stories. And I kind of makes me wonder sometimes if it's because we didn't have the opportunity to speak our truth and our experience and our vision.
Very possible. Very possible. But I also believe that part of what you're doing too is that when you, lift someone else up, like you're doing in an interview here and wanting to share somebody else's story, it gives you the fuel. And women, we love that. We love to connect people. We love to uplift each other. And, there's certain stats out there. Somebody named the other day that 90% of the women believe that we shouldn't support other women. I don't know where those stats come from, but I said, I don't see it.
No.
I say, certainly there's some unconscious things that, there are, as women, we certainly are dealing with. But I see women uplifting women. And I think by sharing our story, we really just want to uplift other women.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that it's a sign of maturity. I mean, young girls, I would say, go through that period in puberty where it's all competition because of the genetics. We're going through our hormones, and we're programmed that way to, you know, but I think that too much has been made out of that, and even in some cases promoted with movies and such, that as if being a mean girl is a good thing, when it really is not. And you're not, if you're one of those, you're not going anywhere with your life. You're not going to succeed, because we need each other, right?
We do.
So
we do. And
so for you, and you knew you could sort of have big dreams and go anywhere. And I'm gonna
kind of, because there was the other side, which is not so good. But at the same time, I always knew there was another way. And I don't know why that term keeps coming, but that I always felt as a child there's another way. I never had a feeling of I knew what I was going to be when I grew up. I never felt that.
Yeah. I relate to that. I mean, you have had just so many fun, interesting sidelines on your journey. Like, it's like your path wasn't like, few of us have a straight path, and yours was no different. But so I'm thinking of, in, you know, time you were growing up, and we're still dealing with it today in some ways, the objectification of women, so that we aren't whole human beings with, you know, all of us, we're just our physicalness. And sometimes it's interesting when I saw that you had done some modeling and you had gotten into bodybuilding. And so, and I look at that as not so much objectification, but taking back your power. So I'm wondering how did you see it as part of it? What age were you at when you?
I was 26. I was 26.
And so why?
Yeah, so the good news is, when I was younger, I was very athletic. And so I had that ability, and that was probably what gave me a lot of confidence and strength, because I could lead, I could, sort of go out on the field, or I can go on the court, I could do pretty much any sport. And that gave me a lot of confidence that was needed, And so later on in life, I have a friend of mine. I'm going to university. This is a fun story. I'm in university class. I'm in chemistry class at U of S. And it's one of the first classes. So it's one of those large theaters, right? So I'm sitting, and this nice looking guy sits down next to me, and, so we start to chat. And so anyway, he said, "Do you want to go for a coffee in between class?" "Oh, let's do that." So we're walking down the hall, and I said to him, something about, "I just shaved my legs and my jeans are sticking." You know that feeling? Right? and he said something, he goes, "Oh, I know what you mean." Now, this is back early 80s. And I looked at him, I said, "Really?" And he said, "Oh, I'm a bodybuilder. So I've had to shave my body. And so I understand what it means when you say your jeans are sticking to your legs." So anyways, that was the beginning of a relationship. And Craig Shear was his name, an amazing human being. And he was really a great natural bodybuilder. Back then, he was completely, against steroids, and was doing it all natural. He ended up winning the Saskatchewans. And doing it naturally. Anyway, so he taught me about bodybuilding, and then from there, I just went to the gym a lot. And so again, on a natural flow I'm athletic. I loved going there. I was a team player. I there weren't many individual things that I did. So for me to go into a competition I didn't go into bodybuilding and say, "I'm going to compete." I was just going to the gym. It became my community. I met a lot of great people. It was below the nightclub that we went to. So it was perfect. You can go work out and then get drunk. So it was perfect. Throughout the years, I met someone else. Rick Suchak was my boyfriend during the time that I was at that gym. And we broke up. We broke up during, we'd been together like 4 years or so, and we broke up, and I was just devastated. It was my first love hurt. And I was devastated. And so I couldn't eat when I'm anxious and nervous or devastated at that time. It was, I couldn't eat. So it ended up, I started to shed a lot of weight, and my girlfriends are looking at me and going, you got a natural way there. You could probably just go and compete. And I'm like, oh, I never thought about that. So anyways, in the meantime, Rick and I get back together, and we make a choice to go in the couples as well. I went into the heavyweights. I'm tall, I'm about 5'10", so I was in the heavyweight. And so that's how I got there. I got into bodybuilding because we had a breakup. So anyways, wow. I would think that's what we were talking about earlier, the things that look to be tough and whatever actually bring us to the great things. So when I'm standing on that stage, I thought to myself, if I can do this, I can do anything. Yeah. That was really what came through, that if I can stand on a stage in a bathing suit, doing a musical routine, which was by far that was not an easy thing for me at all. If I can do this, I can do anything.
Yeah, and I love that you internalized it, that you realized it was your accomplishment, that it wasn't you didn't do it for the boyfriend.
No, I ended up, somehow I reframed it at the time, because I just wanted to succeed. Certainly there's some things there's also that part, the ego wants to do well, but it was more than that. And I realized, that's why I said, when I'm on the stage, if I can do this, I can do anything. But it had to do with my soul. It had to do with, if I can, do this training for all these, for all the years before that, and then train hard for 4 months, diet really hard. Keep committed to this. If I can do this, I feel I can do anything. And it was the beginning of my life, where I moved away from Saskatoon a year later and went to Calgary and started my own life, and a new life rather. And so all of it was so meant to be.
Yeah, the building blocks of seeing what you can accomplish. And I really think it's so important to notice the things that helped us to get where we were. Sometimes we're running so fast, we don't notice what we learned, what we built, because one thing always leads to another, and it's always a choice. And you're always at these crossroads. You sometimes it looks like a Y, sometimes it looks like a T, sometimes, we're always making choices. Like there's so many things you could have done differently, but this took you to, because getting on a stage for a lot of women is not a safe feeling. Like they don't feel safe. So to do it and to recognize, hey, I'm safe, I can do this, probably empowered you because you today are speaking publicly.
Absolutely, it did. It was a big part of the beginning of that. And I'm really glad, again, whatever my mom instilled in me, and maybe the athletics, and then my teacher, Mrs. Thompson, maybe all of that made me feel as if I could do anything. I never felt that I was limited as a girl. And I always remember when I thought I know that you love sharing great things about politics and psychology. And here come the 70s, that show that was where a woman is walking nude into the water in a silhouette. That was like, whoa, that was like so risque back then. And I was very young, but I knew what was going on with the revolution of the freed thinking and the Vietnam and all of those things that were happening around that time.
And the beginning of seeing that group think isn't always all it's cracked up to be. Yes.
And so we only had a few of the trailblazers, which, would have been Gloria Steinem and that sort of thing, where they were literally, doing the truth telling, and they were looked at obviously as fringe. And yet they're the ones that have paved the way for us, right?
Exactly.
But, now that, as we're talking about this, the more that I realized I did have a lot of great female role models, and those were teachers. A lot of, another one was Miss Friesen. She was my grade 5 teacher, and that woman was just a blazing. She had us singing songs about activism and against, using that song, "We're a stranger here on this place called Earth, and we went down here to discover the worth." She had us doing that, and you realize what that song was about.
Yes.
Right? So she had us with the kazoo, where you had the paper and the comb, and we're singing the kazoo, and we had to memorize that song.
Wow, that's powerful.
So I was given a lot of tools, right? That at that beautiful King George school. I can't say enough about that school, and what kind of people were attracted to that, and how they empowered people like me. So because it was a rough area. We came up in the west side. We were not, and right now it's even rougher. But yeah.
Very seldom is anybody's journey this path paved with, it's not a yellow brick road. It's always going to be bumpy. But along the way, if we are open to it, sometimes we're not open to the help that's being offered, but usually there's people along the way. And maybe if you're not open to the help, that's also part of your journey. That's another side of it.
Sure, for sure. We all have our own way.
Yeah.
So I made a choice to move to Calgary, and I wrote in my remember I worked in a seniors home for many years, and I had many jobs. So I was very fortunate. I was there for 10 years. And so they gave me all kinds of different jobs throughout the time I was there. It was a big organization. The Lutheran Church had built Luther Tower, Lutheran Sunset Home. They also had Luther Heights, and then Luther Family Housing. It was a very big organization then. And so I got all kinds of different jobs, and I got all kinds of great experience. But when I moved to Calgary and having the bodybuilding, thought if I can do this, I can do anything. I loved communications. I loved people. I wanted to connect people. I wanted to, then of course there was marketing communications programs in Calgary at U of C. So I was looking at maybe doing some things like that, going into marketing. My sister had a marketing and finance degree from commerce at at the U of S. So I kind of thought, well, I could do that. I didn't want anything to do with finances or accounting. That stuff bored me to tears. But things like about marketing. So I ended up just sort of creating thoughts. What would I want? And I just followed where the journey seemed to want to take me, and took a personal growth program called Personal Best in Calgary. Life changer. My sister was a trailblazer for me then, helping me to find things there that could help me to build my new life. And ended up just going into real estate. And the real estate was just perfect for me because I could meet a lot of people. I could, and it was at a great place in Calgary called the Riverside Towers, where they had a big club, and I could bodybuild. I could go down and it wasn't bodybuilding anymore, but I could weight train. I could do my fitness, because that became, it was my lifelong endeavor. So I ended up having a great gym. I had a great office. I was working with people that were from personal growth, but they were now in real estate. So I really just kept following. So I ended up going into real estate, and wow, I'm 27 by then, 28, the young blonde, vivacious, I'm going to do it all kind of thing. And meanwhile, it was very humbling. It was, I got trained by some of the most phenomenal facilitators that were, prior to that, personal growth facilitators who are now in real estate. So I ended up getting a real strong injection of a lot of support again. And it's again because I just kept following what I felt I should do next. And I didn't, and I found out later on in life, I'm completely unemployable. I am not a good employee. I tried it after I did real estate, because real estate was different. It was a very strong knit group, and it was phenomenal. I got an opportunity to actually, by the end of it, I was a sales manager of 28 people, most of which were double my age. Yeah. And I just had so much good fortune that people saw that I wanted to do more. I wanted to achieve. I wanted to do more. So,
and they probably appreciated your enthusiasm. A lot of times having a young, vivacious person in the office it can be a threat. It can be a threat, but it can also be.
And they encouraged it.
Yeah.
They encouraged it. That was what personal growth was about. Be who you are. And, a lot of tough moments, no question, because it was constant personal growth. I was always under some sort of, light of, how are you today? Well, I'm okay. Well, tell us more. And then you get into it and you really find out, they'd kind of lay it on and say, really, who are you? Back then it wasn't first world problem. But yeah, so there was just a lot of great support. And so I never ever felt that I was limited by being a woman. In fact, Catherine, it's interesting, I always felt that it was actually, it was an asset. And especially someone that knew that there was an arm's length in all of my business relationship. That's what I did. I just made sure that every time it was arm's length. I didn't get deeper. I did my profession the way that, because I wanted to honor that and be a strong.
So where did you think you learned healthy boundaries? Because that's what you're talking about, healthy boundaries. Like how many women have crossed that line and usually paid the price?
Oh, absolutely. I have no idea, because based on what happened in my childhood and based on some of the stuff that I had so much great self-sabotage. I mean, I'm missing a lot of pieces here. Like I might have looked like there was but what was behind all that was a lot of self-sabotage, just crazy partying. And I was never into anything harder than beer and wine. That was or white rum back in Saskatoon days. But, and I can really put down a lot of vodka being Russian. I'm telling you, I'm so good at it. Quit doing that too. But that there was a lot of opportunity for me to self-sabotage. So I did it quite a bit.
So it wasn't without the, so yeah, I get it. You're not trying to paint a completely rosy picture of the whole thing, but
yeah, it wasn't. But it definitely was why I had a desire to overcome it. My desire to overcome it was stronger than the actual addictions or the fear.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's really what happened.
Yeah, and it sounds like you were sort of gathering up experiences to put in your tool bag that you were going to use later, and then we never know where that tool, like the bodybuilding stage,
well, all of that, all of that later on when I'm in Calgary, I quit real estate and I go into personal health and fitness and wellness, and I open up a studio and I end up teaching what I've learned.
Yeah, that's where I was headed with that, was exactly. So you did that. You actually got into the whole fitness.
Right. Yeah, I took all my training to be a personal trainer, and then nutrition. There were very few nutrition certification programs that didn't really exist. I just, whatever I learned, I just passed on. And back then I made a choice because my sister was, she had gone away traveling for a couple of years while I just moved to Calgary, so I helped take care of her home while she was gone. And she became vegetarian while she was gone. So she'd gone to Thailand and she'd gone, all over to a lot of Asia. And so anyway, she became vegetarian. We did this vegetarian, then now it's called more vegan, but that was the journey. And so I had that I had done. I just, the personal growth experiences, and then, moving on to say, I'd like to teach this. And then again, there weren't any certifications. So I would just have a caveat that would say, I believe this is good because it's worked for me. I don't know if it will work for you, but it might work for you.
It's so funny, isn't it? How, when you think about, I remember when my mom telling me when she was first a new mother, and she went to her pediatrician, the family doctor, and he, had been in practice for many, many years. And it was her first baby, she was having problems or whatever, and she didn't know. And he said, listen, don't really ask me. I'm not a mom. Ask a mother. Ask somebody who has been there and who knows what all of this is about. They know way more than I do. And I thought, for the 60s, this guy was, or late 50s, this guy was really,
he's like really different.
Yeah, he really was. But that's where she learned. Right. I think from she learned to share, to gain knowledge from other women, but then she learned to pass on her knowledge in the same way because she understood then.
But isn't that really right? And that's even if we've never had children, which I've never had, it's primal. We need to share. We need to nurture.
And so for you now, you're starting to get you've got some business experience, and then from the real estate, you got into marketing, didn't you?
Well, yeah, this is the part, so I had put on my resume, I like if there's a marketing position somewhere, and it ended up that a lot of marketing was done, of course, during the real estate. And we were a condo specialist company, the first one in Calgary. And it was odd. So again, I got to be in another forerunning situation and learning as we were going, like literally learning as you're running. It was just, that's what we did. And certainly had to learn about the psychology of understanding what were they looking for in real estate and how would we honor them, because we were coming from a background of personal growth. So we weren't coming from a background of just business, sell. We were looking at what was the undercurrent and how could we assist that person. So marketing then became, for me, was not like, and again, this is going to be very common for a female, it was about relationship. Yeah. And sales are, they'd say, oh, well, the guys are the sales guy, and, but of course, any sales guy, they love relationships. They love communicating too. And so the psychology of marketing and just human psychology, I dived in. I loved it. I've always loved it. Reading some forward-thinking books, of course, from Louise Hay, back in 1989 and that sort of thing. And so those were all my foundation and support about marketing and communications. And ended up that did give me many tools and a lot of financial understanding, because I learned a lot. Even then, there were limited partnerships that were buying real estate things like that, that I used that information later in order to do my studio. So there was a lot, you know, all of those things were paving the way for the next, because that's just the way life is. It always is. I see it that way.
So you took that information, and when you got into your fitness, the whole fitness movement, which was, was it a combination where were you training people for physical fitness as well as nutrition and bringing the whole thing together?
Yeah, physical fitness and weight loss, you know, people, again, I saw it as a holistic program. I wrote the program as a 12-week program that I modeled the idea around personal best at a 12-week program. And that 12-week, during a 3-month period, we can make a lot of really good changes in our life. So committing to at least 3 months. So I decided, the book at the time called Body for Life came out later, and that was a 12-week program. And I remember going, exactly, you know, and so I had already, you know, written these programs, but they were more not so much physical. They were more emotional. They were more mental. And then the physical part was, of course, you know, do a program and follow, you know, personal training or other fitness training, weight training 3 days a week, and then the other 2 or 3 days you'd be doing cardio, you know. So it was very simple kind of things then, but most of it was based on, then we know what to do. We know what to do to lose weight. We know what to do to get fit, but we don't do it. Why don't we do it? Well, it's emotional, and it's spiritual even, and it's mental. There's many things, right? So I ended up building a whole program around the psychology of it all. And also being a trainer. And so I needed to, I had to raise capital for that, because I had to open a studio, I had to buy equipment. You know, there was a whole venture there that was amazing. I saw a community of people stand behind it that I was in awe of it.
But what made you, do you know, what made you believe you could raise capital, you could get
I just didn't know I didn't take no for an answer for anything. You know, I realized, well, I can't, it has, if it's going to get done, it needs to, you know, obviously
I need to do it.
The banks don't finance these things, because it's an idea, right? Yes, I'm opening a studio, and it's fitness and it's health, but it wasn't a typical membership, right? It was a smaller, you know, it was a big, beautiful heritage building. So it had one big room in the bathroom we built in, and a little office space. And so it was more like a small personal training studio that I could, all the equipment around the outside, and that I could put chairs in the middle and do the programs during the week. And then people would come in and do their personal training with my dog. So there's always a dog involved. So I would just talk to people and say, well, what would you do if you were doing this? And so a lot of oil and gas guys were around, really, you know, good friends. So I say, who do you know? You know, and that kind of thing. And then the real estate people that I knew. So who do you know? Like, who would I ask about this, right?
So you didn't have any of those walls where you'd be afraid to ask, who do I ask, or what do I do? So
no, I mean, that's the part. I was a connector. I've always been a connector. That was Mom said when I was a little, I wasn't even 1 or 2. She said I'd be putting together puzzles that I shouldn't have been putting together yet at that age. So I guess I had this thing about connection. And so I always wanted to connect. So I'd learn from I'd learn from people by asking questions and connecting. So yeah, it was just curiosity. I just had a lot of curiosity. I just wanted to learn. I wanted to create something, and I needed to learn. It wasn't easy by any means, but it was really cool. And I realized it paved a path now for what I'm doing now. You know, so it's like,
yeah, exactly. And also it really speaks to the other part of it, which I think women are particularly good at, and wise men are particularly good at, and that is surrounding yourself by people who have the knowledge about things you don't. Like a good manager doesn't try to do it all themselves. Yes. So you were able to draw in the people. These are your strengths, and then you brought in other people who had this other strengths. This collaboration and cooperation is really, I think that's the key to our future.
It's everything, but I don't think that we get that easily. Like some people know it naturally. There was a part, yes, I knew naturally that having more people involved and having a team support it, because it was a similar model to Personal Best. You had teams and you had people, and then you'd go and ask and you'd learn. But even with that, I still felt I had to do it all by myself. So no, I still did the self-sabotage there.
Mm-hmm. So that's interesting.
Yes. So I ended up, I had to shut down the studio because I couldn't keep it going. Yeah. So you see, the next part had to happen, which was I still had not healed whatever had happened when I'm young. Of course, the belief system is there, and you want to improve it. That I'm not good enough. I'm going to shut this thing down.
Yeah.
And I didn't consciously think that by any means, but I just tried to do it all and by myself. And when I say by myself, oh no, I'll get that done. I'll get that done. And I just, I just busted. It was just like, no, it's not going to work.
No.
And prior to that, there was another part of my real estate journey where my body did break. I was doing the party thing. I was doing the, probably not eating as well as I thought I was. And certainly my body broke. So I had a lot of tough times getting that back. And so when I was doing the same thing again in the early 2000s, I went, no, I got to stop. And so I did.